he's not going to start till 2 hours.
Good afternoon. I'm so glad to see you made it over the rainbow and past Rainbow Row, here to St. Stephen's to enjoy the latest offering in our Chamber Music at St. Stephen's concert series, The Rainbow Connection, music by LGBTQ+ composers. At previous events, I've remarked upon the words from the book of Isaiah that have been carved into stone and rested at the top of the facade of our sanctuary since this structure was built in 1836. My house shall be called the house of prayer for all people. The church uses these words as a motto of sorts. You will find them on our orders of service on Sundays, on our website, across our social media, and most importantly, in the works we do and the welcoming people we strive to be. Our music program employs a riff on these words for its tagline, a house of music for all people. And we try to make these words ring true both in our selections for worship and in the programming of our chamber music series. Last year, one of our concerts focused on the works of Edmund T. Jenkins, an African-American composer and son of Charleston who made beautiful music at the turn of the 20th century. And we were fortunate enough to have his grandnephew and Saturday Night Live keyboardist, Toughest Zimbabwe, join us to present his works and help ensure they're not lost to history. We also presented a program titled Music She Wrote, which focused on the contributions to the field of music by often overlooked female composers. This program proved so well conceived and popular that it was brought back for an encore when it was selected to be an official event in the Piccolo Spoleto Festival. These programs were particularly fitting for us if you're aware of our history as an integrated parish from our beginnings in the 1820s, when we were founded by a group of 3 laywomen. We're also the perfect venue to host a concert such as the Rainbow Connection. Setting aside the fact that the Episcopal Church was one of the first mainline denominations to sanction same-sex marriage rights beginning in 2015, the same year it was legalized across the entirety of America, this special place was the earliest church in Charleston to expressly welcome members of the LGBTQ community, which it has done for over 30 years. As the neighborhood and city began to change, along with Americans' attitudes, in the beginning of the 90s, St. Stephen's became an early agent of that change by opening its arms to the gay community. We were also the first church or religious organization to participate in the Charleston Pride Festival, and the one that has the largest contingency of any church, nay, of nearly any other organization, to march in the city's Pride Parade year after year. Now, as a side note, a former bishop of this diocese who defected from the Episcopal Church because he couldn't stand our policy of radical inclusivity once derisively called St. Stephen's the land of fruits and nuts. Well, my husband's reply to him was that his doctor had always told him that fruits and nuts are good for you. As a child, I never imagined I would one day be able to be married to the man that I loved. I planned to be married, and I knew that it would be at a beautiful, historic church in Charleston. But if I was to have anything approaching a normal life, not to mention a legal union and family, it would have to be a sham marriage to a woman. A marriage of convenience, or what some of you here may remember we once called a lavender marriage. But because of the great strides we have made as a nation, as a people, and as a wider church, and because of this special place, on the Feast of the Epiphany in 2017, I was able to marry my best friend and the love of my life, lately resident of Charleston in New York. Scott Besant is a hedge fund manager who donated approximately $4 million to make America great again. In preparation for his move to D.C., Mr. Besant has listed his house on Charleston's High Battery for a record-setting $22.5 million. Shortly after marrying his husband, with whom he shares 2 children, Mr. Besant was giving a talk at his alma mater, Yale University, when he said, "In a certain geographic region, at a certain economic level, being gay is not an issue." The question I pose, and the reason why we do events like this, is what about the rest of us? The rest of the ones who comprise the notion of all people. Because I'm not just talking about gays who don't live in the right zip code or have the appropriate checkbook balance. Replace gay in his statement with any other historically marginalized group, and in this day and age, it would still unfortunately ring true. In a certain geographic region, at a certain economic level, being black is not an issue. In a certain geographic region, at a certain economic level, being handicapped is not an issue. Being Jewish is not an issue. Being Hispanic is not an issue. Being a woman is not an issue. And let us not forget, even for those at certain economic levels and in certain geographic regions, gains can be reversed and rights stripped away. Colleen Condon, a parishioner at this church, who is a former Charleston County councilwoman, past president of the Alliance for Full Acceptance, and current first vice chair of the South Carolina Democratic Party, wrote a commentary on the editorial page in last week's Post-Courier that I commend to you. Colleen, who was instrumental in helping to bring marriage equality to South Carolina with their landmark Condon v. Haley, writes that while we have a lot to commemorate as the legal right to same-sex marriage celebrates its 10th anniversary, we still have those like Governor Henry McMaster, not to mention Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, who have actively spoken out about plans to remove this right. Colleen also points out to us that in 2024 alone, the General Assembly has banned transgender youth and their parents from accessing transition-related health care, imposed a discriminatory policy restricting restroom access for trans students, and empowered book banning in South Carolina libraries with a focus on books related to people in the LGBTQ community and people of color. His Grace, the Most Reverend Desmond Tutu, an archbishop in the Anglican Communion, of which this church is a part, once said, "The price of freedom is eternal vigilance." Vigilance is vital, but if I may be so bold, I would add to that transaction the words noise and action. Which brings me back to tonight's program. First, let's address the noise we don't want. Cell phones. If you could ensure they're turned to silent, your musicians and fellow audience members would be greatly appreciative. Now for the noise we do want, the music and our musicians. Wherever you are on the spectrum of the rainbow, or even as a straight ally, oh, there we go, noise. You will recognize many of the composers being featured tonight for creating the soundtrack to our lives. Some of the other artists may not be so familiar, but they're no less talented, and that's another reason why we do events like these, to bring those hiding in plain sight and deserving of recognition into the spotlight. All of the composers featured tonight are pictured on the back of your program. And speaking of talent deserving recognition, we have a slate of incredible singers and musicians who have worked very hard to connect you to the rainbow this evening. If they could please all stand up so that we can give them an advance round of applause for doing so. As for action, that's a perfect segue to our host, Patti O'Furniture. A personal friend of mine and someone many of you may know, Patti has spent 25 years doing what the best drag queens have always done, fostering ties within the gay community while bridging connections to our straight brothers and sisters, and always doing so with style and a smile. A Carolina girl through and through, Patti has won many a crown, including Miss South Carolina Pride and the City Paper's Best Drag Queen Award, appeared on Season 2 of HBO's television show We're Here, and has hosted and emceed countless community and charitable events. But what many of you may not know is that every dollar Patti has ever collected on stage gets donated back to the community. To date, she has raised and donated over $1.5 million. $1.5 million for HIV/AIDS prevention and education, animal welfare, LGBTQ civil rights, the environment, and a host of local arts organizations. So if we could please make some noise for the actions and presence of our special guest host this evening, Miss Patti O'Furniture. Finally, I have one more person to introduce to you. To many of you, he needs no introduction. He brings action, he brings noise, and he certainly brings vigilance. I know that neither I nor his choristers can ever sneak anything by him. I could go on and on about him, but I've already said enough tonight. So I'll instead let him say a few words. He is the choir master and organist of St. Stephen's Church, the founder and musical director of the Chamber Music at St. Stephen's Series, and most important to me, my own favorite activist and my dear husband, Wayne Helmly.
I first became acquainted with her because I listened to a podcast where she gave the most extraordinary, it was about Dolly Parton, and she gave the most extraordinary analysis of Jolene I had ever heard in my life. And I'm like, who is this? She teaches musicology and queer studies at the University of Michigan. She's written 2 books that absolutely helped me frame this program. One of them is called, wait for it, Rednecks, Queers, and Country Music. It's fabulous, read it. The other one is The Queering of America's Sound. They both have shaped the way I did this program, and I thank her a lot. We've corresponded some. And finally, I want to thank all of the people behind me, Patti for saying yes to my invitation, all of these wonderful musicians who have worked so very hard. Thank you so much.
Too early in the evening for me to be going off script, but as a child who used to love watching the Muppet movie, I almost ruined my eye makeup crying a little bit. But what a beautiful way to start off tonight's program. Now, for centuries, a slang euphemism for being LGBTQ has been, oh, he's musical. Oh, she's artistic. A stereotype? Well, of course. But in every trope, there lies a grain of truth. So from the beginning, music has been very importantly influenced by queer people as creators, composers, artists, instrumentalists, and singers. Unfortunately, this has often put our community in an artistic box. A pretty box, but an artistic one. And boxes tend to marginalize us. Through the ages, there seems to have been an unwritten deal worked out between society and the church and queer artists. You know, they love our art, but they didn't necessarily love us. You know, we've always had this one relative that comes to Thanksgiving. It's like, oh, it's the confirmed bachelor, Uncle Henry. Or, oh, that's the spinster aunt. That's what I'm talking about. You know, you love our art. You love our talent, you love our singing, but that eccentricity and being outside the bounds of everyday society, that's fine. But we still need you to stay in that closet. If we didn't comply with the rules, grave consequences often ensued. Well, let's get a little positive here. Perhaps the otherness is the grain of sand in the oyster, the irritant that somehow turns our creativity into a treasured asset. Pearls of music, theater, dance, visual art, and literary classics. Our purpose in this program tonight, which we're calling the Rainbow Connection, is to celebrate through music just a few of the LGBTQ plus artists who've shaped us. At the beginning of the Rainbow Connection that we just heard, Kermit the Frog, I could do a Kermit voice, but it seems inappropriate. I'm more Miss Piggy. But Kermit asked, why are there so many songs about rainbows? But since we are in this beautiful house of worship, I think we need to look at the Bible. And in the book of Genesis, the rainbow is a sign of God's love. It's a promise of redemption. It's forgiveness and our continuing relationship with Him. But then within the LGBTQ plus community, the rainbow is our banner. It is our flag. It's been a symbol of queer pride since Gilbert Baker created and designed that flag back in 1978. One of our rainbow connections, though, and the one we're going to focus on tonight, is the connection through the world of music. It's our hope that this program is going to help build some bridges, some long dilapidated, some never constructed, but bridges nonetheless between music, queerness, and the Charleston community. The first composer in our survey this evening is an American, Henry Cowell. He's a good example of why many composers were so reticent to reveal their sexuality. If you'll bear with me, I'll give you a little biographical information about him. Born in 1897 in Menlo Park, California, Mr. Cowell, who was bisexual. That's the B in LGBTQ for anyone who's keeping score. I know some of you thought it was bacon, but again, you can have dinner after the program. But Mr. Cowell was convicted on morals charges. This was in 1936, though, so he was having a consensual affair with another man. So what did they do? They sentenced him to 15 years in jail. 4 of them were in the infamous San Quentin State Prison. Now, I don't want to play into another stereotype, but really? That's where you're going to send him as punishment? Now, I should say, you all can do the math. This all predated the disco diva Gloria Gaynor's song by several decades, but let's be honest, Cowell was determined to live by the mantra, I will survive. At San Quentin, he was defended from predators by, believe it or not, again, I'm going off script, Wayne. Wayne was telling me that we picked this selection because of this story, and every time I read it, I'm like, really? This is how we're going to start off tonight? This is how we're starting off tonight. But no, he was defended by murderers who were like some of the most notorious murderers at San Quentin. And, well, he also happened to conduct the prison band. Well, murderers, musicians, stereotypes. Cowell ended up teaching music to over 2,700 inmates over the time that he was incarcerated. He wrote a book and many articles and composed as much as he possibly could during this period. Still, in the challenging prison conditions and his extreme difficulty in obtaining a job after being paroled, it took a toll on him that lasted the remainder of his life. Yet despite the cruel and harsh treatment that he received, Cowell still loved this country and wrote patriotic music to celebrate it, even from jail. And in 1943, he published a song called American Muse, based on a poem by Stephen Vincent Benet. Now, notice that these songs are in an early American style, as found in the shape note hymnals of the 19th century, which were themselves heavily influenced by Celtic music. I invite you now to enjoy a wonderful selection, American Muse.
Oh,
Now, while some of you may not be familiar with Cowl, I'm sure our next composer is someone whose name is very familiar to all of us, and that's Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky. And Tchaikovsky's story is another powerful example of overcoming roadblocks many LGBTQ plus composers have faced throughout history. In an infamously homophobic Russia, not much has changed. He struggled with concealing his homosexuality, but he still left an enduring mark with his masterpiece like the ballet Swan Lake, Romeo and Juliet, and of course, the perennial favorite at this time of year, the Nutcracker. Insert joke here. Wait, I'll insert it later. The joke. Listen, y'all, I'm a Methodist masquerading as an Episcopalian, masquerading as a drag queen tonight. And my mother was Baptist, so there's a very, very, very tight rope that I'm walking. But back to our friend Peter. I like to call him Peter, and we're close like that, but y'all remember Tchaikovsky. Well, believe it or not, Russia, homophobic, difficult. Well, to overcome the gossip and rumors surrounding Tchaikovsky's sexuality, which could have landed him in jail, or worse, Tchaikovsky married a woman. Why on earth would you do that? Lavender. But the marriage, believe it or not, only lasted 2 months. A lot of good that did. Well, hopefully they got to keep the gifts. But until recently, many of Tchaikovsky's letters have been withheld from publication because they contained references to this homosexuality. Finally, in 2018, some of his letters were published in an English translation, uncovering passages that had been suppressed by Russian censors. Again, Russian censors? In his letters, Tchaikovsky wrote enthusiastically about his love relationships with men, a fact that Russian propagandists still deny to this day. Yet can we honestly imagine the Christmas season without his classic, The Nutcracker? Says the Sugar Plum Fairy. Here now is an arrangement for flute and piano. It's a few movements from this perennial holiday favorite. this time so y'all can hi people upstairs. Got to play to all aspects of the audience. You never know who's watching. Oh, look, now I can see people who I couldn't see because they were blocked by the columns. Oh, by the way, they picked me for this job because by day I'm a college professor, and they thought that I would be good lecturing to people about really fascinating facts. And Wayne, thank you for all of this information. You have done an amazing job culling all kinds of resources. And thank you for educating me on some of these people and some of these musical pieces that I was not familiar with. And that's true of this next one. In her book, The Queer Composition of America's Sound, Gay Modernist, American Music, and National Identity, musicologist Nadine Hubbs essentially asked two questions. Does sexuality influence a composer's writing? And does the music they write influence culture? She perceptively analyzes how Aaron Copland and a small circle of other gay composers associated with him helped shape the modern sound of American music that we now take for granted. Copland, who's often called the dean of modern American music, was born in Brooklyn in 1900. He was a pioneer incorporating popular American forms such as jazz and folk music into more serious compositions. At the River is Copland's arrangement of an 1865 hymn by Robert Lowry. It was sung at the memorial services for both Copland and Leonard Bernstein. Music's going to speak to you, but Wayne didn't know this when he selected that song, but it was also played at my late mother's funeral, and tomorrow would have been her 85th birthday. So thank you for that little God wink from her tonight. She was also a Baptist who turned into a Methodist. But she always said, The Episcopals get it right. Yes, she was, in so many ways. And she was actually friends with the next person that I'm going to share some information about because she had the good fortune of meeting him. And it's a name that most Charlestonians will recognize, and that's Giancarlo Menotti. Our good friend, Mr. Menotti, is indelibly associated with Charleston because, if you remember, in 1977, he founded Spoleto Festival USA, patterned after a similar festival that he had established in his native Italy. Well, as a student at the Curtis Institute in the late 1920s, he met Samuel Barber, who had become his lover and creative partner for over 40 years. During Spoleto, each spring, the two men were often found out at parties across the street from this very building, right over there, at the home of Peter and Patti McGee. Really? Well, I didn't get that invitation. Well, Menotti and Barber shared a house in Mount Kisco, New York, and traveled constantly and created operas like the excerpts from the one you're about to hear. Yet they were amazingly in the closet. According to biographer Howard Poulenc, they conducted their affair so discreetly as to keep people largely oblivious or uncertain about the intimate nature of the relationship, even if acquaintances long had thought Barber a little queer. And many friends in their circle naturally understood their open secret. Well, welcome to 20th century America. The Old Maid and the Thief. It's a comic opera. It was originally written for radio with music by Menotti and a libretto by Barber. It exposes the gossips and secret of a seemingly quiet town, not unlike Charleston. The middle-aged spinster, Miss Todd, who spends most of her days simply knitting and gossiping with fellow spinster, Miss Pinkerton, has her world turned upside down when a beggar knocks on her door one rainy afternoon. She and her maid, Letitia, they quickly become smitten with the handsome wanderer. I feel like Blanche Devereaux in an episode of The Golden Girls. Vapors. Well, they're smitten with this wanderer, and they're eager to shelter him. You can buy whatever you want to from shelter. Well, anyhow, even though they find out that this wanderer may be an escaped convict, now the old maid and the thief.
This creek is full, we're deep.
What a lovely name. Angela Morley was a British composer who originally became popular under the name Wally Stott. She won 3 Emmy Awards for compositions composed for various TV shows. In 1972, she transitioned to life as a woman, but out of fear that she wouldn't be accepted, she declined all public appearances. After migrating to the United States, Morley enjoyed a fruitful, interesting choice of words, fruitful collaboration with famous composer John Williams. Here is her Harlequin for clarinet and piano. Now, Samuel Barber, who we spoke about a moment ago, not only collaborated with his longtime partner, Giancarlo Menotti, he also wrote some of the most enduring classics in the American repertoire. Hermit Songs was originally debuted by the mezzo-soprano Leontine Price. Hermits. I'm glad y'all aren't hermits. I'm glad you came out tonight. Saying, don't be hermits. Oh, and come back, by the way. Anytime. What, 7:45, 9, and 11? All three? And I see that there's stuff in the program about other fabulous music programs we have going on. Mm-hmm. And apparently there's construction going on. There's going to be a whole new St. Stephen's out in the back. Well, we are glad you all are not hermits and that you participate in wonderful programs like this. But Hermit Songs is where our next selection is coming from. In the preface to the songs, the composer himself, Samuel Barber, best expresses what they're about, and I quote, "The Hermit Songs are settings of anonymous Irish text of the 8th to 13th centuries written by monks and scholars, often written on the margins of the manuscripts they were copying or illuminating, perhaps not always meant to be seen by their father superiors. They're small poems, thoughts, or observations, some very short, and they speak in straightforward, droll, and often surprisingly modern terms of the simple life that these men led, close to nature, to animals, and to God." As we've moved to the late 20th or early 21st centuries, conditions have begun to improve a bit for the LGBTQ plus community. We hope it continues that way. Composer Jennifer Higdon, who's a Pulitzer Prize winner and a 3-time Grammy winner, has lived most of her life as an open lesbian. Her music has been hailed by Fanfare magazine as having the distinction of being once complex, sophisticated, but readily accessible emotionally, with the Times of London citing it as traditionally rooted, yet imbued with integrity and freshness. Let's see what this lesbian has to offer. Here now is her composition, A Gentle Notion. Francis Poulenc, Leonard Bernstein, and Stephen Sondheim were all born within 30 years of each other, and yet their experiences as gay composers could not have been any different. Poulenc associated being gay with impurity and could therefore never truly accept his orientation. Despite this, the Flute Sonata was written for a young male soldier with whom he was having a torrid affair at the time. Now, Bernstein, as depicted in, I'm sure many of you all have seen the biopic Maestro with Bradley Cooper. Well, if you saw the film, and you probably know, Bernstein lived a double life, attempting to hide his sexuality from the world. Sondheim, the youngest of this trio that we're discussing, fared better. He lived his life out and proud, and at his death was married to his longtime partner, Jeff Romley. Enjoy 3 selections from these very 3 different experiences. Send in the clown. Here she is. I'm going to pretend that that's not why Wayne picked that song. Listen, if I'm a clown in a gown, I'm fine with that. And, of course, many of you probably recognize that piece. And the next few songs will be familiar to you as well because they're very contemporary pieces. Beginning in the 1970s and continuing right up to the present day, LGBTQ rock and pop artists have blazed the trails for our community. Gay icon Sir Elton John established one of the first foundations to help fight HIV/AIDS, using his high public profile to raise awareness of the disease while raising millions of dollars to fund research. The Lion King, his musical collaboration with Tim Rice, won numerous Tony Awards and has been running continuously on Broadway since 1997. Freddie Mercury, the lead singer of the band Queen, was among those victims of the HIV/AIDS pandemic that inspired Elton John to create his foundation. Mercury, who is bisexual, wrote some of the most emblematic and creative rock classics ever, including Don't Stop Me Now. On the 10th anniversary of the release of Born This Way, the Atlantic magazine commented that with the song, bisexual Lady Gaga previewed a decade of culture wars and made unity sound defiant. But it would be a dreary day if we couldn't still take some joy from Gaga's central argument that we are all born superstars.
Impossible, she turned away from me.
as we come to the end of our time together, don't go anywhere, there's still more fabulous singing. This musical exploration of LGBTQ composers, has left us with no more fitting end than with a rousing Broadway show tune. I mean, did you really think that we could get away with no show tunes? Well, I guess Lion King, yeah. But we need a big one. Mm-hmm. So, we're going to look at like the mothers of a real Broadway show tune. We got Jerry Herman, Harvey Fierstein, and Arthur Lawrence. That's my best Harvey voice. I'm already a lady with a suspiciously deep voice, so we're going to stop there. Now, I know some of you aren't old enough to remember this, but in 1983, La Cage aux Folles opened in New York. It was the first hit Broadway musical to center specifically around LGBTQ plus relationships and our people. Decades before a fight for same-sex marriage would even be possible, this show centered around two gay dads raising a family with the help of a lovable cast of trans, bi, lesbian, queer, and a few drag queen characters. It showed that while drag could be humorous, the performers were not the joke. The creators of the show later said that they really didn't intend for the show to be militant. Still, they weren't sure what the audience would do. Throw stones? Walk out? Instead, they gave the cast and creators 20-minute standing ovations. Showed you. As the Washington Post later reported, what La Cage aux Folles celebrates, after all, is loyalty and love, respect for others, and respect for self. And yes, even family. The good old values. The truth is that LGBTQ composers have always been about these good old values. We scoff at those who say that we're the antithesis of family values. Our families are often the most resilient. And we've weathered a great many storms. And in the years ahead, we will probably weather many more. So, as we've gathered here tonight, let us give thanks to God for our understanding, for all the positive changes that we and our ancestors have made in our society over time. And here's hope for all of the future best of times. Now, I've got a confession to make. There's nothing else in the script. And when I asked Wayne if he wanted me to say anything, there was a hesitancy because he had no idea what I was going to say. But I've got two things. First of all, please notice in the program that there are some upcoming wonderful music events here at St. Stephen's. If this is your first time here, don't let it be your last. If it's your zillionth time here, bring a friend next time, because on December 22nd at 5 p.m., we've got the annual Festival of Nine Lessons and Carols, which is always a special holiday program. But then on February 2nd, it's the next chamber music series. It's The Times They Still Are A-Changin'. It's the music of Bob Dylan, and it's going to be featuring New York City rock artist Jeff Slate. So put those on your calendar, and I hope tonight you made some type of connection with a song that you aren't familiar with a composer you may not have known. But I want us to leave here trying to make a human connection. So if you will indulge me, this one little bit of homework, always the teacher. When you leave here today, sometime in the next 24 hours, will you see if you can share a smile with one person that you do not know, someone you pass on the street, someone that you see at work, someone that you might be sitting next to in traffic. We never know what somebody else is going through in this world, and now more than ever, a simple gesture like a smile can go so long and so far and so powerfully help us make those connections. So there's your homework. I'm not going to grade you on it. I know you're going to do it. And thank you all for being here tonight. Have a very safe trip home.